Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a Bizarro World type game. I'm stealing that line, by the way. That is, I do not deserve credit for that line. There was a great tweet that was someone tagged me in during that game by Danny at Simmer67, where he says, I wonder if there's a Bizarro Renny in TO who will be full of brooding pessimism for the Leafs after they win this one. Jets are caving in the Leafs after a sleepy second and a couple of gaffes. I feel seen. I feel so seen right now in this moment because I was thinking that entire game, okay, all you Jets fans out there who say, oh, you know what, get your goalie's part of your team. Yeah, so Connor Hellebuck stole this one, or, yeah, so they popped up, and what does deserve have to do with it? Yeah, they didn't play for 2/3 of the game, but they came out and won it. Good teams find a way to win games. Well, if you subscribe to that philosophy, then you subscribe to the fact that the Toronto Maple Leafs are better than the Winnipeg Jets because good teams find ways to win games, right? This is an example of what the Winnipeg Jets have done to other teams all year long. What the Toronto Maple Leafs did to the Winnipeg Jets, they had phenomenal goaltending that allowed them to get away with a lot of stuff. They got outshot for a good chunk of the first period, absolutely turned it on for a little bit in the second, and then somewhat coasted a bit in the third. And yet they come away with the 4-1 victory in this game. This is what it feels like, Jets fans. This is what it feels like to be on the other side of this thing. So I think the answer to what happened in this game somehow lies in the middle. I don't think this game is as bad as it looks, as a 4-1 score is. I definitely think the Jets were more engaged than they were against the Montreal Canadiens. But I will say this, I'm not letting the Jets entirely off the hook. This just isn't a hot goalie situation, and it's not just Toronto Maple Leafs capitalizing on some opportunistic goals and some nice plays. Obviously, that Austin Matthews goal, if you were the kind of person who would hand your Lamplighter out to someone on the other team, I think it's pretty clear who the Lamplighter would be going to on this night. But I will say this, I thought that the Toronto Maple Leafs did a very good job of neutralizing the Jets' strength. In a game like that, where the Jets have a hard time getting things going quite often, we've talked about this on the show before, what they'll do is they'll start moving the puck up to the point, creating chaos in front of the net, and then lobbing the puck in from the point. That's when you get your tip-ins by Pierre-Luc Dubois or Blake Wheeler, sometimes Mark Scheifler. That's when that puck will drop and it'll get popped into the net. What I noticed was happening quite often was the Toronto Maple Leafs would be waiting for the Jets to float that shot in, and a defenseman would jump up in front of that shot, knock it down before it got to the net, and then turn the puck up ice so it never got into the chaos that players like Pierre-Luc Dubois were trying to create. I thought it was a fascinating way to neutralize what the Jets do so well, is cut it off before it gets there. And the Jets have been a really good team, Josh Morrissey specifically, at creating those shooting lanes, all the spinoramas you see him do all the time. He drags the puck across the blue line. Quite often what he's doing there is he's opening up a shooting lane and then getting the puck in on net. Well, the Jets are a tough team on the back end to shut down their shooting lanes entirely. Dylan Sandberg's made that move a couple times extremely nice this year and gotten goals off of it. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, for the most part, seemed okay with letting the Jets shoot from the point. But what they were doing is they were knocking it down in the high slot. The response to that, I think, if you're the Jets, is you have to go that much harder at the front of the net and create chaos, because usually when the Jets have success, it's because the defenders are turned towards the Jets players who are causing the chaos and trying to fend them off of the net. The Jets just didn't get the Leafs defenders' backs turned. They were looking up ice. It allowed them to turn the puck up ice and relieve the kind of pressure that the Jets were trying to put on. But I'll say that even along the boards tonight, the Jets, who usually are able to generate a lot of pressure and were able to do so for stretches of the first and definitely the third, the Toronto Maple Leafs also seem to be able to neutralize that quite often. This was a good game plan by the Toronto Maple Leafs to not have their to not win the effort battle, which I thought the Winnipeg Jets won on this night, except for the second, which was, we'll get into that. If you're going to fall asleep against a team that skilled for an entire period, you're going to go down and you're going to be chasing the entire game, and that put them in trouble. But I thought it was an interesting game plan. I think this is another one of those games. We talked about this earlier on in the year with the Washington Capitals, about how they had maybe put a blueprint out of how you handle this Winnipeg Jets team. I do think, to a large degree, what Sheldon Keefe did with the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight is a bit of a blueprint on how to handle the Jets when the Jets have their system going and when they're trying to turn pressure on you. That's my take on it. It's time to get Ken's take on this. Let's bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Ken. Kenny, poor Rob Mahoney here. I know he's been in this show for a long time. He says it's the Kenny and Renny show, Sean. Please let Kenny be a part. Somehow Rob has been here for years and doesn't seem to understand that this show always opens with a Renny diatribe so Kenny can finish writing his work and soliloquy and get his stuff published. There's a method behind this madness, but poor Rob is having a hard time. Phew, says Rob Mahoney. That was a lot of Sean. Rob, I hope you could stick around for the rest of the show and get through, big guy. I'm sure you'll be able to. Ken, before we get rolling on that, I want to hear your thoughts, but Rennie's having a bad hair day. I just did a workout. We like rock music. We just got to hear some. Let's hear some more. Let's make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Full disclosure, Ken, I'm not having a bad hair day. I just wanted to stick it to Rob Mahoney a little bit more with some more Sean-focused themes going on here. But let's get to Ken. Before we do, I just have to say this. If you haven't put in your Lamplighters and you haven't been doing that as of late, we're rolling into 2 straight weeks or 2 straight shows the Lamplighter wasn't claimed. We're handing out a 2-4 today. We're handing out a 24 of Frosty Delicious Trans-Canada Brewing Company Lamplighters today in this show. If it doesn't get claimed, it's going to jump all the way up to a 32-pack. So get your Lamplighters in today. When the Lotto Max goes up past 50 million, you got to buy a ticket. The same thing's happening right now with the Lampies on Kenny and Renny. Kenny, take it away. What did you see from this game here tonight?
Yeah, certainly interesting. I mean, not the Jets' best. There were certainly some moments they would be happy with in terms of their offensive generation. But their errors were very, very costly and egregious and things that they need to clean up awfully quickly. I didn't like the turnovers, didn't like the fishing by Mark Scheifele on the first goal coming out of the gate. So that's just one of those where we always talk about being ready at the start of periods, and face off in the neutral zone shouldn't be a big issue. But Austin Matthews won the draw back cleanly. Morgan Riley makes a really smart play off the boards. Michael Bunting puts it through his legs. I know a lot of people getting on Neil Pionk. The Jets are a team that is aggressive at the defensive blue line. And Mark Scheifele was in perfect position to play Austin Matthews. That's not a Neil Pionk problem. No. And for folks that think that I have been hard on Neil Pionk at times this year because I haven't thought that he's played particularly well at times. But that's not a Neil Pionk problem. Brendan Dillon is back. Mark Scheifele is in perfect position to play Austin Matthews. And he didn't check either the man or the puck. And Austin Matthews walked in and had a 2-on-1 and scored. I mean, that's what goal scorers do. I mean, that's one play where the Jets weren't sharp out of the gate and it cost them. So In terms of the overall effort, it's interesting. I mean, at even strength, the high danger chances are even. I mean, expected goals, Jets are slightly ahead according to Natural Hat Trick. I mean, all that being said, I mean, yes, the Jets had chances, but you can't manage the puck the way that they did and win games against high-end teams that can be opportunistic. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The Jets got jetsed tonight in a lot of ways, and they may not like how it felt, but I mean, that's what happened. I mean, there's no arguing, there's no sugarcoating anything else. I mean, here's the other part. I mean, I get it. I mean, the Jets generated plenty, 30 whatever shots they had, 30 I'm going to double check. I mean, it's close to 40 shots on Samsonov, and he played great. There's no doubt about that. But, we've talked so much about needing better starts. I mean, the Jets had a great start. So when you have a great start, you need to convert that start, or else you need to be ready for the start of the second period. And the Jets simply weren't ready. I mean, if Austin Matthews doesn't shoot the puck over the net, he scores on 3 shifts in a row. Sean, I mean, he was so open in front of the net on the third one. It should have been 3 goals in 5 minutes. And I'm sorry. I mean, this guy had 60 last year. You need to know where the guy is on the ice. I mean, I understand the first play we've talked about that too, but I mean, on the second one, and I know Dubois was closest in proximity, but Dubois was actually checking Nylander. I mean, there should have been another defender in that situation there when the puck came out of the corner from Bunting, and I didn't think it was played very well by a lot of people. And again, the turnover by Scheifele on the Marner goal, that's something that you can't attack 1-on-2 in the neutral zone when you're on the man advantage. I mean, that's something that, but I would also say this. I mean, I'm not going crazy on Mark Scheifele. Like some people were in my DMs and mentions. I mean, Mark's had a good year. He had a bad night. Mark would be the first to tell people he had an off night. Puck management wasn't good enough. Got an assist, but he wouldn't feel good about that. He knows his puck management wasn't good, and he was fortunate that another one of his turnovers didn't end up in the back of the net when he got stripped by Bobby McMahon, and Engvall rattled it off the post. And Terry Trey. I mean, the Jets have scored 4 goals in the last 3 games. Only one of them has been at even strength. So
exactly.
That's a concern. I mean,
we got to dig into that. Let's do that right now. Before we do, let's just give a shout out to Frankie and the boys of Vittorio Rossi, who do a great job of, when we're working in the building, making us look good. We are a terrible representation of Vittorio Rossi tonight, but you've seen us in the past and what we can look like. Just know this is kind of what look, I'll take this off. This is what we look like in real life. You see how well he dresses us up? Frankie and the boys, we head down there and we're like, I don't think you can fix this, Frank. And Frank's like, I got you guys covered. Don't worry about it. Yeah. If you want to get covered, head on down to see the boys, Frankie and the boys of Vittorio Rossi on Corydon Avenue. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. And before we launch into that, because I think that, to be honest, you just touched on what may be the biggest issue that the Jets need to get figured out here. And that, which is, to be honest, outside of some spurts, kind of pestered the Jets for a good chunk of the season, is their 5-on-5 play and how much they can rely on it. Before we do that, though, Kenny, give me your Lamplighter of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to giving it to the opposition, but I just didn't really think there were any. I mean, it's a 2-on-1 through the 5-hole. It's a great shot by Marner and Austin Matthews all alone, or a Giordano empty netter. So I mean, again, it's the puck movement by the Jets on Kyle Connor's blistering one-timer on a 5-on-3. And hey, I get it. That's an automatic goal if the net is half open. But the Jets' ability to get their power play going into a top 10 unit, I think, is important. So, like I said, I would have been more than happy to give it Marner shot his bar down for sure. But like I said, that's a bad turnover in the neutral zone and a really good player scoring. So by means of almost by acclamation. Kyle Connor, I think, he has the lamplighter. It's his 23rd goal, and Josh Morrissey picks up his 50th point of the year on the goal itself. So, although it was a bit of a toss-up, I'm still going to go with the Kyle Connor one-timer on the power play, because the Jets probably had like 4 opportunities before that to score, and they didn't get demoralized, which can be easy to get frustrated when. And I also like the effort. There was a really good effort play on the sideboards. I think that David Kampf might have overskated it, but the ability to keep the puck in Because if that puck goes down the ice on the 5-on-3, it was only minute 12. I mean, I don't know that they would have been able to get set up again and score the goal. So all of those factors led me to choose the Kyle Connor 1T 23rd of the season for my Lamplighter, brought to you by the good folks at Trans Canada Brewing Company.
I'll tell you this,
very soon.
I thought you were way off and crazy until you gave that reasoning about the frustration angle of having that 5-on-3 and getting as many opportunities as they had, and the Jets not kind of panicking, not squeezing the stick too hard, sticking with the plan. I think you're all over that. At the same time, it's a 5-on-3 goal. Puck movement is great, but it's a lot easier to move the puck in a scenario like that. I'm going to be that guy. I don't know how you can't call the Austin Matthews goal, going through the legs of one of the other team's superstars and heading in and starting the scoring right there. It's the most important goal of the game.
There's no doubt it's the most important goal.
Or through the entire game. To me, that's got to be the Lamplighter. I think sometimes we like to try to reserve the Lamplighter for Jets goals, but on a night like tonight, I feel like it's a little bit undeniable.
You're using a bit of veto power here, a little bit of veto power by Sean Reynolds.
Yeah, I have to. It's going to drive Rob Mahoney. Rob Mahoney is stabbing himself under the table with the fork right now. He's so mad that I just vetoed you on that. But hey, it doesn't mean you can't share your Lamplighter. You don't have to agree with me either. All you got to do, though, is make sure, because there's potential, like I said, for a 32-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale in your future if the person who won from last show doesn't claim the now 24-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale from Trans Canada Brewing Company. So if you want in on that, just share with us your Lamplighter of the game, your goal of the game, and you are automatically entered. If you can't wait for us, though, to hand one out to you, head on down to Trans Canada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 1290 Kenniston Avenue, where Kenny and Renny will be for the next Kenny and Renny show for a live airing of the Kenny and Renny podcast after the Ottawa Senators game. Going to be so much fun to be down there. Great stuff. Congratulations. And I'm going to hand this out right now. The winner, or the person who potentially stands to walk home with a Frosty Delicious 2-4 of Lamplighter Amber Ale, is Chef Richard, who I know has been on this show and watching it since the very beginning. I've had the pleasure of meeting him in real life a couple of times. He was on the show last time. I haven't seen him this time. Chef Richard, you are on the clock. If you don't message me at SN Sean Reynolds before the start of the Jets' next game on Hockey Night in Canada, you need to give me your full name. You need to give me an email, which I can send you the voucher. If you do, you will be taking home a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale from our friends at Trans Canada Brewing Company. If you don't, it rolls over, and boy, oh boy, there's just going to be that many more fireworks at the live viewing of the Kenny and Renny show. Great stuff. Ken, moving on, let's do our Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game.
Oh boy, not a lot of good candidates in this one. We'll have to double up here. This is also your Say Something Nice About Ville Heinola segment. I thought that Ville Heinola played the one-on-one with Alex Kerfoot exceptionally well.
Yes.
I thought he was quite assertive in the first period. So in a game where he needed to bounce back after a really rough go, and as we mentioned on Tuesday, he was not the only one, and nor am I, calling him out to say what's wrong with Ville Heinola. He cost the Jets the victory. For a guy who needed to bounce back, I thought he was, much more assertive in the game. I thought he was playing defensively sound. I would still, I understand it's hard for when you're, when you don't want to make mistakes, it's hard to show your best qualities, get involved offensively as much as he would like to. I think in a game like this where the Jets are chasing the game, this would have been a night where Ville Heinola should have been a little bit more involved offensively. He made a couple of nice plays, but I think the bounce back there was important for him especially. So I'm giving the We've Got You Covered to Ville Heinola for a well-played one-on-one after a night where he was on for 3 against and had a bit of a rough go on at least a couple of those goals. So
yeah, Jeff Kabili's agreed with you 100%. Got you covered, he says. None. Laugh out loud. Just kidding. I give it to Heinola. He's got it. He nailed it here. And I think that we should have a conversation, and maybe we'll have that right now. Before we do, I just want to talk about him quickly and the way he was in the game here tonight. But before, I just want to give a shout out to our Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group. You won't find 2 businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits proudly proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and teledoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. Ken, I have thought for a long time there are so many benefits to our partnership, and one of them is being able to listen to the things that you have to say on a lot of topics. And I know it was a while back, we were on the other side, opposite sides of an issue where I was saying Ville Heinola needed to earn his way into the lineup, and you had said something about getting him in for a stretch of games in order to kind of get a foundation below him. I think that Rick Bowness took my tack to start out, and that's why we haven't seen a lot of Ville Heinola. There was some sickness issues and stuff like that. But for the most part, I do think that Ville Heinola has been the victim of not having his best game, and Dylan Samberg just showing that he's in a better spot right now and making it in. I do think tonight that the decision to keep him in the lineup was that his last game was a rough enough game that Rick Bowness maybe thought to himself, well, A, he's a puck-moving defenseman at his best, so maybe that's what we need against a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I'm really thinking, Ken, that there was a little bit of this that Rick Bowness was thinking, at this stage, if I pull Ville Heinola out of the lineup after a bad performance like he had in the last game against the Montreal Canadiens, we may risk losing his confidence. So this is my take on it. I wonder if Rick Bowness had him back in this game because he's worried that the confidence of Ville Heinola may have suffered, and that he thought, if I can get him back in quick and give him an opportunity to correct himself, in a couple of days, it would put him in a lot better place. And after this game, despite the Jets not winning, I think he may have accomplished that if that's what he was trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Sean, I know where you're coming from, but to me, if Dylan Samberg doesn't miss the practice for being sick, I don't know if we're at the same place, to be honest. I don't know if Ville Heinola plays tonight if Samberg was fully healthy. That's not relevant, I guess, as it turns out. We'll never know for sure. But I think the more important story, no matter what the reasoning, Ville Heinola took advantage and did a good job of bouncing back from a tough night. And, that's on him. That's good on him for getting that job done. Now the next question is, what does he do on Saturday? I mean, now a team's lost 2 in a row. There's obviously going to be a couple more days for Samberg to get fully healthy. I mean, they haven't won 2 in a row. Now, which qualities do you want in the lineup? Do you want the penalty killer, or do you want the puck mover on Saturday against the Ottawa Senators? So that competition, like we said, is very much in flux. And I think, and I know some people may not like it in the chat room, Logan Stanley was skating in a regular jersey. I don't think that means he's going to be an option for the Saturday game, but means he's getting closer to coming back, and there will be more choices on the horizon. There was a choice on the horizon on the fourth line, and that meant Carson Kuhlman was out of the lineup today for the first time since joining the Winnipeg Jets off waivers. So more choices to come. I think, like I said, 10 minutes of ice time for Ville Heinola. He was not a star. He was not the GOAT in any stretch of the imagination. I thought he bounced back nicely. It was another important step for him because he has to play assertively in order to stay in the lineup. And, he did a nice job in the minutes that he had. All of that ice time was on even strength. I mean, it'll be interesting. Like I said, I mean, we've known for a while now that the Jets like to have Dylan Samberg on the penalty kill. He's been very effective there. I'll be curious to see if Samberg is back in the lineup, and if he's in the lineup, if he's back in for Heinola or for someone else.
I always like to go to the audience for questions if we can. Andy Johnson's asks one that's extremely relevant and someplace we wanted to go. He says, "How did you like the new lines?" This is an interesting topic for this show, and I knew it would come up. Ken, what did you take away? Let's start with line 1 and Blake Wheeler moving up there.
It was a tough night for Blake. I thought on a lot of levels. Blake's played very well. He had a really good stretch with that line. And I didn't think his game was particular. I thought his skating, he didn't have his legs tonight, is what I would say. that line had a few chances, and I thought it was more. I thought Dubois and Connor were more dangerous than they had been on Tuesday night against Montreal, where they were not very dangerous at all. But I don't think that Blake had his best game, personally. I didn't see a lot of... I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Blake Wheeler has chemistry with Pierre-Luc Dubois. It was not on display in this game for me.
Not at all. I'll say this. There was one point so I thought, and I think we talked about this. Oh, we didn't get to talk about it on this show. Okay. I'm going to go and I'm going to tell you what I think that Rick Bowness was trying to accomplish. I think that the snake charmer offense that you've heard me talk about, that Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele are so good at, I think that they were starting to fall into that. And I think Rick Bowness wanted to give those guys an opportunity to play again with each other. It was broken up by injury. They came back. Team was in a bit of a hot run, so there's no point to break that up. But I do think that Rick Bowness is probably of the belief that the snake charmer type offense that they seem to fall into at times is not going to work in the playoffs. And I think he was trying to force them away from that style of game, which I think Cole Perfetti kind of falls into it with them as well. And so I think there was a message in those three players kind of being scattered to the wind, right? Like he didn't leave two of them intact. One goes to one line, one goes here, one goes there. It kind of reminded me, Ken, this happened to me all the time in high school. This may be crazy for you, but I talked a lot in high school, and I talked a lot to the people around me, and I forced a lot of teachers to take and move us all on opposite corners of the room, which worked to a varying degree. Sometimes it just meant we yelled at each other from across the room and then just were that much more disruptive. But it had that feel to me of like, I'm not just going to like move one of you. All three of you are getting broken up because I don't like where this is going. And I think there was a message in all of it. I think the message for Cole Perfetti was, you're going to go down to the third line. You need to learn to grind a little bit more. So we're going to put you with two guys, and that's your game, and that you've got to grind. And then I think for Mark Scheifele, staying on that second line, moving Ehlers there and Morgan Barron was, we need you playing a little bit more of direct lines, right? I want you moving faster than what you're moving. I don't want you doing the slow snake charmer offense. I want you getting up to speed. Morgan Barron won the fastest skater competition. His motor is always going high. He had a time tonight where he dumped the puck in, and there was like 5 guys ahead of him, and he got in to retrieve the puck. Like, he's a fast guy. He's a direct line guy. Nick Ehlers is clearly fast. I thought that was an attempt by Rick Bowness to get Mark Scheifele skating and get him going faster and getting him more direct lines. And then with Blake Wheeler, I thought what the goal was there. Where has Blake Wheeler had his success this year? For the most part, it's come right in front of the net, him redirecting pucks in the net or tapping in rebounds. We've seen him score a couple this year where he's just fighting his way, using that big body, shoveling a puck in the net. And I thought, hey, if you're playing with Pierre-Luc Dubois is basically going to take the puck and try and dare you to stop him. I'm going to take this to the front of the net, and if you can stop me, well, good for you, but I'm going to test to see if you can stop me. And then Kyle Connor is also a fast player who's, can kind of up the tempo of the line. So I thought that was an attempt to get Blake Wheeler moving a little bit faster, but also going to the front of the net. At the beginning of the game, in that first period, there was a couple times where they got some opportunities, and Blake Wheeler was standing right there in front of the net. So I think it was working to start the game out. But then when they started playing from behind, I think you're right. Blake Wheeler's game kind of disappeared. He didn't work the boards as well as he usually does. There were some uncharacteristic turnovers there. It was strange because we see Pierre-Luc Dubois works those boards so well, and you would think, and we've seen it in the past, that him and Blake could get together and really, really work those boards. Tonight wasn't the night for that. And on the other line, I really thought what I saw from Mark Scheifele and Morgan Barron and Nick Ehlers was just 3 guys playing on an island, right? I thought Nick Ehlers was still playing his game, but he was kind of playing it by himself. I thought Morgan Barron was doing all the things that bring him success on Lowry's line, and if he would have taken that same game down to Lowry's line, I think that line would have been more effective. But it just seemed detached from everything that was happening. I just don't think whatever memo Rick Bowness was trying to send to Mark Scheifele, I don't think Mark Scheifele got it. And Cole Perfetti, similar. I don't think that that really worked there. For me, this was a swing and a miss on trying juggle the lines and force players to do a certain thing. If he was thinking what I think he was thinking, it made sense in theory, but it did not come together in practice.
Sorry, you just asked me about the top line. I didn't know we were supposed to go through all of them, but I like your assessment.
You did one, I go down,
Okay,
so now
no,
you
good.
can pick up on the
No,
other
good,
two.
good. I like it. I mean, we talked about this before, and actually we were on others both opposite sides of the coin with Perfetti last year when I think this was tried. I didn't mind the thought of Perfetti with Lowry, but I didn't like the result today. They weren't, they didn't generate a whole lot either. I actually thought that Morgan Barron played really well, but I actually thought if I were Rick Bowness, I would have put him back with Adam Lowry because he's played his best hockey on the checking line. But I agree with you. I mean, that line, it was, to me, it wasn't necessarily about getting Mark's pace up. It was about providing Mark with some players with pace, I would argue. Or not argue, I would just augment what you said.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessarily they wanted to get his game going. They wanted to get other players that play at that speed.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And I think though, I was sitting on the couch thinking, man, I think Perfetti needs to go back with Scheifele because it seemed like Ehlers was getting a lot of speed going, but that second wave wasn't happening. And the way that Cole Perfetti plays, I actually thought that Ehlers' ability to push the defenseman back and then find the trailer in Perfetti would have maybe helped them a bit. But at the same time, Sean, then who's doing the digging? Who's doing the dirty work in the corners? Yeah. I mean, that's what Morgan Barron is there for. So it feels like they were in a place where not a lot of players were going at the same time. And I just didn't think that, I thought that, to be quite frank, I thought a lot of the lines were a little bit disjointed. In a lot of ways, that they just didn't have a ton of chem. Even though they were able to generate quite a bit, I didn't necessarily think that it was because of the line changes in terms of flow in the game. But I mean, I think this is an important time of the year to try different things because of the amount of time that is left before the trade deadline. I think it will give the Rick Bowness and the management team a better idea of what they're going to need and maybe who will fit better with whom. Once things get rolling here and once Mason Appleton is back in the lineup, I mean, we expect him to slide right beside Adam Lowry. That's the thing. I mean, we haven't really seen much of Barron, Lowry, and Appleton together because Appleton and Barron were injured at different times. So it'll be important on those fronts, and I think it was important to try. I just think that, long-term, Cole Perfetti's probably best chance to make an impact will be on a top 6 role. I mean, but, as the guys mentioned on the broadcast, it's now been 15 games since Cole Perfetti has scored, I believe. So I think there's been a little bit of overpassing in there, but this is a guy who has, he gets himself in position. He just is in a situation where he needs to get a goal offensively and get going. And it's not just Cole Perfetti. I mean, I think Adam Lowry now has gone, 17 or 18 without a goal too. And I mean, we talked a lot about his great start offensively, and he had a great start offensively. His offense has dried up a little bit, at least in terms of the goal scoring. And I mean, Adam's a guy that needs to be a double-digit goal scorer based on the type of game that he brings. He brings a lot of value added, but he still needs to be a guy who chips in offensively with some goals. So I think it's an important time to try some things, but I don't think it should be a surprise that it didn't necessarily lead to a 5 or 6 goal outburst. I mean, that it's not always how it works. So again, like I said, I'm not anti-blender by any stretch, but I think it is a good tool for evaluation, as Brady says here. Gives the coaching staff a chance to test out a couple of different things and maybe see if some things can work. And it also will help in the evaluation process. I mean, I talked about Carson Kuhlman earlier. We talked earlier. I mean, he wasn't a great fit to play beside Mark Scheifele. I mean, he's not a top 6 player, but I mean, and then he was used with Adam Lowry. I mean, as a stopgap before Appleton, that was something that made sense. And now he finds himself in a battle, on the fourth line to see if he can be in the lineup or be out of the lineup in this battle with Sam Gagner, Axel Jonsson-Fjallby, and Kevin Stenlund and David Gustafsson when he comes back. So I think it was, like I said, it was worth trying. I just don't, just didn't work necessarily. And I don't even think that when I say it didn't work, I understand full well that it was 38 shots and there were plenty of high danger chances. Like I said, I didn't see a ton of cohesion from some of the combinations. I think the lines still generated, but I don't think that there was. I don't think it was. I'm not left. I don't come out of this game thinking those are the lines the Jets should be using for the next 10-game block. Though I do think I would like to see some of those lines together a little bit longer, if that makes sense.
I'm going to switch gears here. Brady says, Brady, game over Winnipeg says, Sarah Valley had a report that Tays would cost a second and a third. I think Jets will likely be part of that conversation. They love bargains. Cap space could work better elsewhere. I'm surprised by this report. That seems like a very, very light price to pay for a player like that. But there's also part of this conversation that we kind of have to bring in here. I'm not that I'm not afraid to bring it in here. We should be talking about it. Julie Sue says, I will literally stop watching Jets games if they trade for Tays. His lack of character is sickening. Given that Kevin Cheveldayoff is the one person out of that situation that we know was in that room when they were talking about the situation with Kyle Beach in Chicago, and that he's the one guy that survived coming out of that room and is still allowed to operate in the NHL at this stage. And given that there's also an understanding that there was fairly a lot of knowledge about that situation happening within the dressing room itself, can Kevin Cheveldayoff even consider going after Jonathan Taves? Because I wonder about the PR angle of it. I mean, if Kevin Cheveldayoff has to distance himself as much as he possibly can from that situation, on the understanding that Kevin Cheveldayoff really didn't know what was going on, it would be similar to, like, what would it look like if they reinstated Joel Quenneville and he picked up Joel Quenneville? Like, I don't think he could have done that in the offseason. I know someone had kept asking me and saying, oh, I wonder if they'll reinstate Joel Quenneville. And I'd said, well, if they do, the Jets can't go after him, because you can't go out and hire the coach that was taken out of the league last season because he knew about that, and be the general manager who apparently didn't know about it, and then bring that guy in. I would almost think, and tell me if I'm way off on this, I would almost think the same situation would exist with Jonathan Tays, or at least at the very least has the potential to be a distraction if they did go down that road.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, Julie Sue is entitled to that opinion, but I mean, Jonathan Taves is, I mean, I've known Jonathan since he was 18 years old. I was around him leading into his draft year. To say that his character is terrible, I don't agree with that take personally. I understand a lot of things have been said about who knew what when. The facts are that Kyle Beach was one of the Black Aces, which is what one of the called up players are. He played 0 games with the Chicago Blackhawks. To say that Jonathan Taves knew everything about it, or what he knew, only Jonathan knows for sure. He is weighed in on the subject. I mean, I'm not saying it. I would say it's something that people have to be aware of, certainly. But I mean, Kevin Cheveldayoff knows the type of individual Jonathan Taves is as well. If you're suggesting Jonathan Taves could have or should have done more, I mean, that's a fine take to have, to say he has no character. I mean, that's not how he is viewed. It may be how he's viewed by some people. But I think that there are a bunch of things that a lot of people are just assuming, and it's more speculation than what may have been happening. And I'm not saying that I know anything else. What I am saying is, people are acting like Kyle Beach was on the team for 3 seasons and this is just something that was swept under the rug. And I feel very badly for Kyle Beach in terms of what happened. But for people to assume that Jonathan Taves could have stepped in and done something about it, I don't know that that's a fair take either. So to answer your question, is it something the Jets can consider? I don't know how the Jets feel about it. But I know that, Kevin Cheveldayoff would have a pretty good handle on how Jonathan Taves is viewed and perceived. And he's had his resume is pretty pristine, both in terms of how he handles himself and how he conducts himself on a personal manner, and how he prepares himself to play. I mean, Jonathan Taves has produced a lot of winning. He is someone who is homegrown, and he's had basically a Hall of Fame career. So, I mean, That's not to say that everything was handled perfectly. I'm not suggesting that for 1 second, but um, I don't think that that's a fair take. I think Jonathan Toews in 2010 was 20 years old. I mean, to say that he should have to say that it's his fault, I don't think is a fair assessment. So that's my personal opinion. So
the one thing that I think is the most important takeaway from that situation is, to me, the culture of silence that existed in hockey for a long time and allowed people like Graham James to operate, which I know hits home for someone like you, Ken, because I don't know, I think you said so on this podcast before, but there was almost potential for you to end up in your younger days playing for
sure, I
Graham
sat across
James.
the table from him. He wanted me to move to Swift Current and play AAA midget hockey with the Legionnaires. So
So
I
there you
mean,
go.
like I said, this is not something that I'm trying to sweep under the rug either.
Yeah.
I just think that if Jonathan Toews is at fault, how about the rest of the people on the team? The guy was 20, 21 years old. I mean, I don't. It's not, to me. It's not a fair brush to be painting a person with. Anyways,
My take on this is, and what I walk away from in that situation is the problem with hockey for a long time, and the way that people like Graham James were able to operate the way they did was because of the culture of secrecy that exists in hockey. Jeff Hamilton has done phenomenal work on that situation. And I can tell you, like he did work. I found out through his work that a guy I played senior hockey with for years by the name of Lloyd Pelche, one of the best senior hockey players I've ever played against. I'm going to be playing against him 2 weeks from now in a tournament in Lac du Bonnet. The guy was magical, and I believe he had 50 goals. I think he had a 50 goal, if not a 60 goal season in the WHL, and it came out in Jeff's work that he was another victim of Graham James. This kind of stuff happened all over the place, and I've known of Lloyd Pelche since, this would have been after all this happened to him, and I've known him since 1997, and this stuff just came out all these years later, like 25 years later, this stuff is coming out. And the reason it came out is because of the shame and the culture of secrecy that existed around this. And the one takeaway that I walk away with is whatever anyone knew in Chicago, whether it was what the players knew, what the coaches knew, what anyone in that building knew, the takeaway from that, and the lesson that I think the NHL and hockey in general needs to learn, is see something, say something. Hear something, say something. These kind of things should never be dirty little secrets. They need to get out in the open. And I would suggest, I would say this, I don't know specifically what he knew. Some people brought up the idea that he was defending Joel Quenneville, and there's a lot of people in hockey, I can tell you this behind the scenes, there's a lot of people in hockey that defend Joel Quenneville. And so I'm not in the situation to know enough about what everyone knew, but what I do know is that at this stage, people should have taken the lesson from that if something like that ever happens again and you hear something, you can't stay quiet about it, because that's how creeps operate in the system and go undetected and do this kind of stuff for years and get away with it for years. And I'll say this, I don't know, Ken, I don't know the answer to how much Jonathan Toews knew or how much someone could consider him culpable in this situation. I know that Kevin Cheveldayoff was allowed to continue operating because the feeling is that he may not have known enough, and that's what he says. But the fact of the matter is Kevin Cheveldayoff was around that, and there was potential to have heard something. And whether he did or not, I think optics really, really matter here. And I think the optics of Kevin Cheveldayoff reuniting with the captain of a team where this happened, and a lot of other people kind of got axed and cut out of the game because those people had dead to rights by the information, whereas there's a little more gray area where Kevin Cheveldayoff is existing, or Jonathan Toews. I think to kind of get together afterwards would kind of be a little bit I think personally the visuals of that are problematic. Those two players, the captain of that team, the assistant general manager of that team, where that happened, and there's a lot of talk about what was known behind the scenes. Getting back together would show that's in our past. Let's move on from that. And I just think that that's a tough message to put out there. If you're either of those two, I think it's tricky. I think it has the potential to be a storyline that has people going forward. And if you're taking a look, if people in our chat room are talking about this and bothered by this, these are Jets fans that are absolutely, they bleed blue, white, and just a tiny little bit of red. And if they feel that way, then just imagine how the rest of the hockey world that isn't blinded by the blue tinted Jets glasses is going to feel about that. That would be a pretty big story. And imagine what some of our colleagues, like Frank Saravelli would think about that, because Frank has been, really, really vocal about that situation. Rick with TSN, all the work that he's done. This would be a story, and I don't know that it's a story that you would want hanging around the Jets if you were Kevin Cheveldayoff or Jonathan Toews.
I mean, there's going to be other player. I don't know that. No, neither you or I have said he is their top target. I mean, Jonathan is 34 years old. He's not having a great year. I think he will be rejuvenated by wherever he goes. And I don't know, like I said, I've never said that he was their top priority. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how things transpire. So,
yeah, no doubt. Okay, let's move on from that. Before we do move on, I want you to give a shout out to our main man, Sweet Lou.
Yeah, if you happen to be in the real estate market, have any real estate needs, if you're buying, selling, looking for a place to see what something is worth in your community or another one, you can contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca, and his website is www.louferlin.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human, and excellent supporter of the community and of our podcast, of which we are very appreciative.
Absolutely love Sweet Lou. I gotta say here, I'm getting some flack here from Bobby Heenan, who says that I've got a tough take here. Fair enough, but make sure you're getting my take right here, Bobby. I'm saying so they can be in the league together as long as they're on different teams. I never said anything of the sort. I don't know where you're getting that from. What I'm saying is, if you don't think that this could turn into a storyline if they got together, that you're missing the boat on this. If you're looking for where I petitioned to have the rule book say that they can exist in the league together, just not on the same team, this is a tough take. This is I don't hand wake ups out in this show, but if I did, if you're going to try and criticize my take, at least come somewhere in the realm or the orbit of what the take is before you try and take it on. Let's get into the 5-on-5 stuff here, Ken. What is the problem with the Jets 5-on-5 scoring? Because like you'd said, 4 goals and however long, only one of them is a 5-on-5 goal. And I will say this, one of the things that their penalty kill throughout the year has hid, and their power play at very opportunistic times has hid, is that the Jets, for a big chunk of this team, have been one of the worst bottom third, top 5 teams in the league. And you don't often find that a team as high as they are in the standings, struggling as much as they do at 5-on-5. You would think that's the kind of stat that, you may be getting above it now, but would really end up biting you in the butt before you get to the playoffs. What's your take on what they're doing 5-on-5?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, sometimes teams go through dry spells. I mean, we know that the Jets generated plenty on Sunday against Vejmelka, who played very solidly. Tuesday they didn't generate enough against Montreal by any stretch of the imagination. Tonight they had enough chances. They just maybe were not sharp enough. I don't know. I don't see anything structurally. I mean, today they weren't around the blue paint maybe as much as they have been. I think also, too, one of the things that we've talked about all year long is how they've done a great job getting their defense core involved and getting that second wave of offense. We haven't seen as much of that. Yes, of course, Josh Morrissey got an assist on the 5-on-3 goal, but Although the Jets were doing a nice job of activating, I didn't really see them getting a ton of grade A scoring chances from the back end here. So, I mean, that's always something that they can get involved with. But again, that also means your third F3, your third guy high has to be available, and there has to be a guy covering. So, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's something where, like I said, I don't know that I would be overly concerned. We knew it was going to take some time to integrate some of these new players, and not new players, injured players, and see where they best fit. On a night where the Jets had 38 shots on goal and 10 high danger chances at even strength, I don't know that anyone is sounding the alarm, but we do have to mention the fact that they haven't scored a lot 5-on-5 in the last 3 games. I mean, that is a fact. So do they need to do a better job on that front? For sure. Will they automatically do it against Ottawa on Saturday, a team that's had trouble keeping the puck out of their net at times? I mean, we'll see. Rick Bowness was confident. He said, he thought that if they generate this type of offense like they did today, they'll be fine. They'll score a few more goals. I mean, ultimately, it's great to just say that, but they got to do it. I mean, that's the beauty of hockey. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you need to do it. I mean, that's the other part of it. So, anyways, yeah. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not overly concerned, but I do think it is something that they have to keep an eye on, because like some of the other stuff we've talked about, Sean, the bigger concern for me is defensively, and I don't mean in terms of a complete breakdown of structure. I just think that, some of the bad habits that have been hard to break for the Jets, now all of a sudden, if you're cheating for offense, now you have a real big problem, right? Because if the Jets start cheating for offense at a time where they're already making some poor decisions defensively, now you have big time problems that are tough to correct. So, I mean, for me, it'll be interesting to monitor. I'll be more interested in not just Saturday's game, but this next block of games. How are they generating their offense? And does it come at the expense of defending, which is something we've talked about all year long, like the importance of doing those things. So, I don't know. I think it's something that'll be very interesting to monitor. Like, what do you think? Do you see structural things that have you concerned for the long term? I mean, I still think I've said all along, I think the Jets need to add offense. Like Timo Meier, I think would be the star attraction. I mean,
oh man,
I've talked about Bo Horvat, but I mean, I think that for this Jets team, if they are considering changes, like Timo Meier is a guy who, yes, he has a $10 million qualifying offer, but if Timo Meier is interested in signing long-term for the Jets, well, now they have some other backing. You know what I mean? Like that's something that to me would, like, that's a big, strong forward that can score. Big-bodied guy. He's not a crusher. He's not a, like I said, I've mentioned Ivan Barbashev as a guy who I think would be a great fit for the Jets, and I still think that. But if they can somehow get Timo Meier, now that is a guy who is a game changer, a difference maker, and a game changer for a top 6. It now stretches out their depth a great deal. Now there's more scoring on that third line, and to me, suddenly that's a different story. And for Hot Lunch 4011, Lawson Krause just signed an extension with Arizona. I don't think he's going anywhere. I did think that he was a guy that could be on the radar in previous years, but I mean, he's a guy who's pretty happy where he's at, so I don't see him being a guy the Jets will be on the radar for.
Timo Meier would be phenomenal. I mean, young guy. He's a year younger than Nick Ehlers, is he not? Nick Ehlers talked about playing with him when they played junior together in Halifax. They're very good friends. Maybe that's something that you could leverage, right? 2 guys who are extremely good friends ending up together. We know how hard it was for both Patrick Laine and Nick Ehlers when Patrick Laine moved along. And there's potential there if you were to get a player like Timo Meier, who gives you like so much of your future and would actually, take care of a lot of the issues that you may have in potentially losing a Pierre-Luc Dubois or Mark Scheifele or Blake Wheeler down the stretch here. To get back to the 5-on-5 thing, the Winnipeg Jets system under Rick Bowness, which I know they haven't been getting to as much as of late. So that's a different thing, and maybe it kind of weakens the point that I'm trying to make here. But their system is essentially designed to work the way that it did in against the Buffalo Sabres, right? If it's not your night, but you're falling into your defensive structure, at least what you can do is just kind of put up a shell and wait for your opposition to make a mistake and pounce on that mistake. And sometimes what that mistake is a penalty and putting you on a power play. And the point was made in here by Bick Ronis, who says the Jets are 20th in 5-on-5 scoring this season. So yeah, it is a season-long issue. The power play has saved them. Bick Ronis absolutely nails this. The power play has saved them. Connor Hellebuck showing up the way he has saved them. The fact that, guys like Mark Scheifele and Pierre-Luc Dubois, the way he's been playing, Kyle Connor are just so dangerous, has saved them to a degree. But I do think that this is a problem. I think it's something I'm actually surprised we haven't talked about it more often. I know I talked about it in one of the broadcasts. I think we talked about it earlier. The Jets were worse than 20th at one point. They were actually pretty low, but they've been pushing their way up. I think they may be in 20th now, but I think they've made their way almost to the middle pack of the league. But to be a division leading team, to be a conference leading team and be near the bottom third of the league in 5-on-5 scoring, that's kind of crazy. Like that shows that you're getting there a certain specific way. And the one thing I think is when power plays are, being handed out like crazy in the regular season, or teams are being like a little bit less careful, the way if we go back to a game like the Tampa Bay Lightning were against the Winnipeg Jets, Tampa was just taking all kinds of penalties in that game, the kind of penalties you never see them take in the playoffs. So the Jets can win a game like that against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the regular season, but to do that in the playoffs gets a lot harder. And so I would suggest, to the point that Bick Ronis is making, this is a season-long issue, and I think it's something that the Jets are going to need to address if they want to become the team that they want to become, or if they're going to become the team that they want to become in the playoffs. It's an ongoing issue. It's been hidden for a long time. Nights like tonight, we see the Jets know what to do on the power play. They know how to make it rain on the power play. But at some stage, against the very best of the best, if you are not matching them at 5-on-5, you are losing that series. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because you're probably not going to generate enough power plays to score your way back into the game. That's a problem that needs to be fixed. And to be honest, I don't know where to start. I wonder how much of it has to do with the idea of them playing in Rick Bowness's system and putting up that shell. Although his system is designed to turn over the puck and get it back and take it down ice and make some plays, right? Maybe you're right, Ken. Maybe what they need is to add a little bit more depth, a Timo Meier type, or someone else like that, bring them in and kind of spread the scoring out a little bit more so you can get more depth scoring. Maybe depth scoring is the issue entirely, and that's what they're missing out on here. But 5-on-5 needs to come around regardless. We talk a lot on this show, Ken, about all the things that the Jets need to do. And believe me, keep in mind, everyone out there, we understand the Jets are in a good spot, right? Like they seem to be doing a you take it, no, you take it thing with the Dallas Stars for first place in the Western Conference right now, but they're sitting right there at the top of the Western Conference. This is not like, turn on the air sirens or ring the bell. There's crazy problems here. The reason we have these conversations is, again, I think both Ken and I are in this same boat. We believe that the Jets can do certain special things, but there's certain things they would have to do to be able to pull that off. This is just one of those topics. 5-on-5, the Jets need to start pulling up their socks on that and being a more dangerous 5-on-5 team, I would think. Ken, anything you have to say before I hand out the home field award and we move on?
Nope, I think we got that. I mean, again, in terms of where the Jets stand, I mean, I understand it's a game-by-game thing, and a lot of people get fired up by every single game, and that's okay. That's part of the deal. But I would also remind people that yesterday the Dallas Stars gave up 5 unanswered goals to a non-playoff team in the San Jose Sharks, and today they're beating the LA Kings. So yesterday the Dallas Stars didn't fan base was not looking for pitchforks, nor were they saying Jake Ottinger is a bad goalie. I mean, nor should you today be saying, oh, what's going on with Connor Hellebuck? And I think Bick Ronas is our new, he's our new Ryan, suggesting that Connor Hellebuck hasn't had enough. Connor Hellebuck's last 5 games before today: 857, 952, 951, 727, 929. So don't say he went 6 games with a sub 900. It's not accurate. So Connor Hellebuck, for those who missed it, was named to the NHL All-Star game. He will join Josh Morrissey in Florida. He was voted in along with Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon, I believe. So they will be representing the Central Division at the NHL All-Star game.
Sorry, I just wanted to address something that T. Will says here. T. Will says about my take there. Are these things saving them, or is this just what this team is good at? I think we're confusing features for bugs here. Having a good PP isn't a break glass thing. It's just one of their skills. T. Will makes a really good point here. The point, I guess, that I'm trying to make is like, what's the conversation that always comes up in the playoffs? There's certain points at which refs just will not make calls. So if your game plan and what you are good at is capitalizing, keeping games tight, and then capitalizing not on 5-on-5, but with the extra man, when you head into the playoffs where they won't make calls and players will be getting away with murder, then it makes it that much harder for you to win games in that manner. That's the entire point of what we're saying here. So adding more potential, more of a threat at 5-on-5, I would argue, is something that the Jets will really need to do if they want to go deep into the playoffs. I agree with you, T. Will. I agree it's what the Jets are good at. I agree it's one of the reasons why the Jets are where they are, and we should not scoff for a second at where they are. They are earning their way to the top of the Western Conference, and this is one of the ways they're doing it. I'm just saying the playoff game changes, and the changes would not bode well for the Winnipeg Jets. Less penalties, less opportunities to win a game with the extra man would harm the Jets more than a team that gets the majority of their offense done 5-on-5. That's just I think that's a pretty cut and dry how that would work. Time to hand out the Home Field Dig Deeper Award. To do that, I am going to go back to one of the comments that you really like there by Brady, Game Over Winnipeg, who says, one good thing about the blender, gives the coaching staff more info in a case of injury in the playoffs, also helps evaluate players better. This could be a game that Rick Bowness looks back on and says, we're not going to go in that direction because the last time we tried that, it did not work that well against one of the better teams in the league. Brady, you dug deeper, and because of that, you are going to be taking home one of these beauties. As long as you get a hold of me, the Home Field Dig Deeper shovel. That's our Dig Deeper award. It's becoming a real status symbol. Jeff Johnson shared, he had his up on the mantle. Absolutely gorgeous. Love that. You want this status symbol, and if you want it, you got to get a hold of Renny at SN Sean Reynolds. Direct message me, and I will send you a voucher for that award that you can pick up at TransCanada Brewing Company, which is where we will be doing our next show from. Scotty the Flute's going to join us there. Ken and I will be there. We're going to get there an hour early. So game is at 6 o'clock starting time, right, Ken? So we'll start
6:17 puck drop. It's hockey night, right? So
there you go. So we're going to start there at 5 o'clock, a little bit earlier. If you want to come down and chat with Kenny and Renny, that first hour goes by fast. The game goes by fast afterwards. We'll be doing that. The tap room will be open so we can hang out there a little bit longer afterwards if anyone's interested in doing that. We'd love to do that. We love spending time with you, whether it be with the chat room or face-to-face. That's you all are all the best part of the Kenny and Renny podcast, and for us to have an opportunity to show you all how much we appreciate you. We love having that opportunity. So if anyone is interested, if you don't have tickets, you can't get in that room, but we will be in and out of that room. And if you head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company, or after the podcast is over, if you want to come on down and grab a pizza and some drinks, Kenny and I should still be going. We would love to have all of you down there. Kenny, great job tonight. Chat room, awesome job, as you always do. And I'll end this the same way I always do. If you appreciate the conversations that are happening in these spaces, conversations like Kenny and Renny are putting on, or Illegal Curve, or Winnipeg Sports Talk, please appreciate the sponsors who are fighting to keep these conversations alive in these spaces for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnston Group, Lou Ferlin, and Home Field. Thank you so much to them. Thank you to all of you. We are so excited for the Kenny and Renny live show. Next game after the Winnipeg Jets play the Ottawa Senators. We can't wait to see you all there. Bye-bye.